Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. Interesting trial started a couple of days ago in Connecticut, and it's the trial of this woman here you see on the screen, Michele Troconis. But it is much bigger than that. It goes back to May of 2019. And you see on the screen, besides Michele Troconis, is Jennifer Dulos, who is the wife of Fotis Dulos, who in this very convoluted story was about to be charged with the murder of his wife, Jennifer Dulos, when he turned up nearly dead in the hospital, and he died in the hospital, and it was ruled a suicide. And he left a note indicating that he had nothing to do with the death of his wife. And usually a dying declaration is viewed in the legal community as pretty damn important and usually true. But in this instance, it seemed more like a self-serving statement. Don't forget, Fotis Dulos and Jennifer Dulos have 5 children. Did he leave that last thought so that his 5 children would think that their father, in fact, did not kill their mother? So in the light of all these other circumstances, Michele Troconis is getting charged way after the fact here, very complicated case, with conspiracy to commit murder, tampering with evidence, and hindering prosecution. We're going to take a dive into this tonight. So hold on to your seat. You're entering Police Off the Cuff, the off the cuff zone, real crime from a police perspective.
There has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have the car stopped in Tampa Ranch, Michael Ryder.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger.
You know, to join me tonight in this complex, legally complex, convoluted homicide case with no body recovered is retired NYPD Sergeant, professor at Albertus Magnus College in Connecticut. How apropos to this crime, of course, took place in New Canaan, Connecticut, is Professor Michael Geary. Mike, welcome to the show.
Billy, thank you for having me on. Good afternoon, everyone.
You know, Mike, this is a complicated case, and I don't care what anyone says. We're going to go over some of the forensic evidence. We're going to go over some of the testimonial evidence. We're going to go over what it means to try to prosecute a homicide case without a body. Right. It's been successfully done before, but most people have a problem with that. However, in probate court, a judge did rule that Jennifer Dulos was considered dead. So even though they didn't, there's the legal ruling on whether she's alive or dead. So she was ruled by a court that, in fact, she is not alive. So you see Michele Troconis there, the woman in the beige sweater, all the way to the right in the photo I have on the screen. I don't think this is going to be a very easy case to convict her, because conspiracy to commit murder. Okay, how did she conspire to do that? Tampering with evidence. How did she tamper with the evidence? And hindering prosecution. Won't a jury be sympathetic to her? Wait a minute. The husband, Fotis Dulos, and his wife were going through a really combative divorce. He's the one that killed her. I would think that's what the jurors are going to think, and that's probably what, in fact, did happen. Why are we now unless this woman, Michele Troconis, took part in the actual murder, why should we convict her of all these other charges? Mike.
Billy, yeah, she's being charged as part of the conspiracy to kill the wife. And it appears that the prosecution's case right now looks like it's almost as if she's an accessory after the fact, that she actually wasn't there shooting somebody, stabbing somebody, driving a getaway car, providing a firearm to kill someone, those sorts of things. However, the they did have this affair that was going on while he was being had this acrimonious relationship with his wife, going through the divorce and the 5 children. It was going to cost huge amounts of money to do the for the child support and for the alimony, and so therefore she may have been one of the reasons why the husband decided, her faithfulness to him may be one of the reasons why he decided to kill his wife and then move in, have his new girlfriend in the future. And then you look at that. So she may have been part and parcel of maybe doing a little planning. We're not sure. Also, it appears that as an accessory after the fact, tampering with evidence, because Fotis was seen on video up in Hartford, far away from his home, dropping off bags of what appeared to be some sort of garbage into various garbage, stanchions around the city while she's driving around in the car next to him. She's actually the passenger in the car. So it's not the strongest case I've ever seen, but it is certainly a decent circumstantial case.
Police in Connecticut say has helped them connect Fotis Dulos to the disappearance of his estranged wife, Jennifer. Tonight, we're seeing that video for the first time. CBS 2's Tony Aiello has developments on what it shows and why it's being released.
His suicide in January ended his life, but not the overwhelming interest in the crime. So the release of this video satisfies a powerful curiosity. Fotis Dulos in a black pickup, perhaps unaware he was on a Hartford street loaded with sophisticated surveillance cameras. It was the night of May 24th, 2019, just hours after Jennifer Dulos was reported missing. The video shows Fotis Dulos stopping to dump bags in the trash and also leaving what appears to be a car mat on the side of a deli. When cops traced his phone here and found this video, it was the first big break in the case, leading to charges against Dulos and his girlfriend, Michele Troconis, who claims she was just along for the ride and not a knowing participant in disposing of evidence. In a legal filing, attorney John Schoenhorn says certain allegations contained in the arrest warrants that allegedly provided the basis for probable cause are clearly false and misled the court. Schoenhorn says the only clip with Troconis visible shows her wiping her hand on the ground, but not helping Dulos dispose of evidence. He also says cops embellished on DNA evidence allegedly linking Troconis to the garbage bags. Troconis told cops she did help Dulos clean a vehicle days after Michele vanished, but thought any mess was spilled coffee. The defense released this clip to bolster that claim.
Did you see spilled coffee?
No, I didn't see that.
Did you see a coffee cup?
No, because I didn't look inside the car.
The videos are part of a court submission in advance of Friday, when Michele Troconis will ask a judge to remove the GPS bracelet and lift other restrictions imposed as part of her bail.
So very interesting, Mike. Like, why would, first of all, let's play devil's advocate here. He's getting rid of evidence, Fotis Dulos.
Yeah.
And she's sitting in the car right next to him.
Right.
Is it believable that she doesn't know what he's doing or had nothing to do with it? But regardless, a juror may not want to convict her of conspiracy to commit murder. You're from Connecticut. What does that carry? What kind of sentence?
Billy, if it's conspiracy to commit murder, it's possible she could get 25 to life. Because being part of the conspiracy, being accessory before or during or after the fact, you're considered equally liable as the principal, who is the one who's actually driving all of the action that you're helping through your accessorial role. But she's looking at, a good amount of time in prison. I agree with you. It's not the strongest case, and it is possible that a juror might say, look, she's got no blood on her hands. We do know, however, that the recovered material does actually have blood and Jennifer Dulos's DNA on it. So it's, the jury's going to look at use their common sense and say, is it common sense to believe that she must have known that the day after his wife is reported missing, that her boyfriend is going around dumping bags of garbage in various garbage cans throughout the city of Hartford, and and she had no idea that there was actually blood evidence in there. You might look. The defense only has to get one juror to agree that it's possible that there's reasonable doubt that she knew of what was going on. You don't have to convince one.
But Mike, what I'm really thinking of, and again, usually I'm like, oh, I'm pro prosecution. I really believe, and I looked at the arrest affidavit. It's 43 pages long on Fotis Dulos. Again, law enforcement across this country does an unbelievable job, especially detectives. They've done a fantastic job. But at the same time, I think people that know about this case, people in New Canaan, Connecticut, people all across the world that have followed this, they really wanted Fotis Dulos to have been held accountable, because I don't think there's a doubt that anyone believes he's the one that killed his ex-wife.
Right. Definitely.
Who actually wasn't. Now she's dead, but his wife at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And people wanted him to face charges. And so now to get out of it, he commits suicide and leaves a note proclaiming his innocence. So is this the prosecution's way, maybe, of getting the piece of meat for the people?
Billy, it could be. It could be. I would like to see more. And I'm a police officer, and I love, seeing the bad people go to prison, get punished. I would still want something more than that video. I would want, and those statements that she made. I want to see something more that ties her into this. Some sort of smoking gun, and as a metaphor for blood, a note that she wrote, calls that she made, things that she said to third parties that were taken down, from witnesses. I want to see something more than this. I really do. She may be the one huge reason why Fotis actually killed his wife. She was the main driving reason, because he wanted this new girlfriend. But we don't know how much information before the death he had given to his girlfriend or asked her to help him with. It may have been when they were dropping off all of those bags of garbage that he was telling her for the first time, this is how I'm disposing of my wife. You don't know. It can get very morbid, but that doesn't mean that she was a real, player in the death of this, of Jennifer Dulos.
Absolutely. I'm going to play this here.
Disappearance of New Canaan mother of 5, Jennifer Dulos. And now, more than 4 years after she vanished, the first trial in connection to the case is set to begin today. Michele Troconis, the former
Just when it's getting interesting.
girlfriend of Jennifer's estranged husband, Fotis Dulos, is standing trial for charges that include conspiracy to commit murder. NBC Connecticut's Shannon Miller has been covering this complicated case from the start. She is live outside Stamford Court. Shannon, I have watched you for almost 5 years now. Stay focused on this story.
It's going to give us a little update on this case. I hate that this happens. Let me move ahead. I wanted to show some of the evidence in this case. It's still loading.
Yeah.
They want to show the actual crime scene of. Hang on.
Ashley Banfield, special contributor here.
Now, it is a case that has gotten worldwide. I've watched you for almost 5 years.
A lot of police work. Here's a look at how we got to today.
Well, Michelle, obviously, you know what this stuff was all about, right? It's not a surprise that we showed up tonight
Almost overnight, she went from a possible witness
New Canaan police are asking for your help. They're trying to find this missing woman
to a person of interest in the case of a missing mom of 5 from New Canaan.
We see state police, New Canaan police, searching downtown Hartford.
So what's that about? Why is the scene moved to Hartford?
You need to tell us what you know about Jennifer's murder and Forrest Dulos.
The girlfriend in the middle of a bitter and brutal divorce battle.
This is very important. The stuff you were throwing out, we have. And it's all Jennifer. It belongs to Jennifer. Do you understand?
Turned high-profile murder investigation.
What happened to Jennifer, Michelle? You gonna do the right thing, Michelle?
Investigators wanted to know, did Michele Troconis know anything about an alleged plot by her then-lover to kill his estranged wife?
I'll be honest with you, you're probably one of the most hated women in America right now.
Or was she betrayed by her boyfriend?
We believe that you were kind of dragged down a certain path. Okay.
So can you?
Isn't that what Focus does?
The search for the missing mom would spawn a statewide, years-long, all-out effort by investigators searching high, low, and everywhere else in between. And the man at the center of it all would refuse to cooperate with them.
It's an exhausting fight. I love my children. That's about it.
But his final move would bury any potential answers for good. Something his closest confidants never saw coming.
Forrest Dulos was declared dead tonight at 5:32.
Now, justice for Jennifer falls squarely on the shoulders of 2 of Dulos' alleged co-conspirators. Michele Troconis maintains her innocence and says she's not the woman investigators have portrayed her as. A legal battle brewing for nearly 5 years.
She was detained in a way to overcome her will.
Will now rest in the hands of a jury. This is the trial of Michele Troconis. And so many gripping moments in this case. All of this culminating here at 10 a.m. at Stanford Superior Court when Michele Troconis and her legal team are expected to walk in here and begin that first day of this trial. A lot of people wondering what sort of evidence is going to be presented in this, what sort of witnesses we're going to hear from. I've obtained a witness list from the state's attorney as well as a list of names pertaining to this case from Michele Troconis' attorney. It's about 300 plus names. How all of this plays out, how many witnesses we actually hear from is still to be determined. We are expected this trial to last at least 6 weeks. Another part of what we're going to be hearing and what the jury is going to be hearing are those interrogation videos. There's hours worth of them. There's 3 separate videos. And again, those jurors are going to be hearing those intense moments between Michele Troconis and state police detectives. These are all videos that her attorney was trying to get thrown out before the trial today. We're going to have much more on those interrogation videos, Heidi, coming up at 6:30. We'll sit.
So very, very interesting. And even we're watching the video of Forrest Dulos dumping the garbage bags in separate garbage bins. And Michelle is in the truck next to him. Right. That's, some people might say, so what? Maybe she didn't know what he was doing.
Maybe not.
That's being, that's taking a real naive perspective. However, one juror could say that. One juror could feel that way, or several could feel that way. The defense is painting Michele Troconis as her rights were violated, that she's not getting a fair shake by the police. They immediately pointed fingers at her as a person of interest. We'll use that term that the media seems to love. A person of interest. A lot of the evidence in this case is going to be these police interviews. And when I see them, I'm baffled as to why. Like, it appears that her attorney is sitting in those interviews with her, the gentleman who was on the left. Why would an attorney allow his client to be grilled by the police in that way?
Yeah, Billy, when you look at those videos, I just want to go just quickly about the videotapes of Fudos dumping the bags in all the garbage cans. I would think Michelle would be more of a real accessory if she was driving her own car and he was the one getting out and taking stuff out of her trunk. So, where she would be actually an active participant, she was just a passive participant in those videos. But as far as the defense attorney is concerned, I doubt that he's a very experienced criminal defense attorney. Maybe he does family law, maybe he does real estate law, maybe he does, corporations and partnerships. I don't know. But one of the things you're told in law school, if you're going to go into criminal defense work, the best thing you can do is just tell the client to shut up. And what you do is, as an attorney, is you get her. If she calls you, you get her to a place where it's quiet, comfortable. You debrief her for hours and hours and hours and see what she's going to say. And then if you think that she could offer something to the police that would exonerate her, then maybe you would walk into that police station with her and be able to walk out anytime you want, but give a statement like with on video. I see him sitting there in the police videos, and he's very passive. He's not saying anything. And I'm thinking she's not really prepared for the questions. And I think that's not a good thing to do. If you're an attorney, a defense attorney, you want to put her through the ringer to see how she stands up to these kind of questions, see what she's going to say. And that takes a long time. So I'm really not happy with the criminal defense level of criminal defense attorney that she's got.
Karen, Michael, I thank you for, I don't know if that's true. The attorney was a real estate lawyer.
Yeah.
A real estate attorney has no business in a criminal case. No. He's got to leave that the real estate, that's his forte, not criminal law. Let me put this up on the screen here.
But it's empty inside that home. Even
this is the inside of the Dulos home.
Right.
And the police is the police body cam searching through this home.
You're not trying to give me a first chance.
Michelle, obviously, you know what this stuff was all about, right? It's not a surprise that we showed up tonight.
Almost overnight.
This is the, I want to show the garage.
Believed to be blood on one side of the vehicle. And you understand sort of what investigators were working with in the early parts of their investigation.
Kevin, the final piece of video evidence played out in court on day one is this video taken by state police detectives who were called in, documenting the crime scene. This is what it looked like when they went through and took video of the kitchen. One of the detectives testified that it was a systematic way that they capture every aspect of a crime scene. They start taking video outside and then they go inside room by room. They said this size of home on Wills Lane created its own challenges. This video here played out in court was about an hour long. Now, when asked if there was a particular area that they focused on when taking this video, that detective replied, the garage. As you saw on the body camera video earlier, there were a number of those what investigators call blood-like stains found inside. This is the best look that we have ever gotten at the evidence we have known about for years. Among those stains, this red stain that looks like a shoe print on the floor of the garage. There's also a red smear on the floor, which was depicted in that state police footage. The evidence on the Range Rover, you can see police shine a flashlight on red spots on the side of the car, then the red substance on the front of the car in the grill area. So the jury has the body camera video from New Canaan Police, the crime scene documentation video from state police now to consider. What do you think, Kevin, is the benefit for them to not only hear from these detectives, but see it from their own eyes and how these police conducted their investigation?
Absolutely. The jury has a chance to sort of really sit through a deep dive into what investigators were seeing again at the very early stages of this investigation. And what really struck me that the jury had the chance to watch was how fast investigators were able to sort of switch this entire thing from the possibility of a missing person to something larger, something that they had to call in state police. State police spent a long time, again, over an hour, and they split it up into 2 different sessions, videoing the entire home, perfectly preserving everything that was inside that home. And the defense even had the chance to ask one of the state police detectives that did the video if they were worried that New Canaan was in the home and sort of did their own scan of the entire home beforehand. And the investigator said that that was not something that they were necessarily too worried about because they were able to see the body cam later on from New Canaan Police Department. So you sort of watching the jury sort of go through this entire early phase of the investigation and get a sense of what investigators were looking at the very beginning of this entire investigation.
Yeah, and Kevin, you know, the jurors have now had a night to sleep on this, kind of absorb that video that they've seen. They've got their work cut out for them because there is a tremendous amount of evidence that's going to be presented in this case. Sitting in the courtroom yesterday, I couldn't help but see what I appeared to see as a very engaged jury pool here. They've got,
you know, tremendous amount of evidence, tremendous forensic evidence, blood evidence. However, the killer's dead. The killer in this case is, we believe, was Fotis Dulos. He committed suicide. So if I'm a juror, you know, Michele Troconis, she didn't kill.
Right.
She's not the killer here. So why should we convict her for conspiracy to commit murder? Tough thing to prove, Mike. There's no body here. Tough thing to prove. I'm also joining us right now also is retired NYPD detective straight out of Brooklyn, Phil Grimaldi. Phil, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Billy. Sorry I'm late. Just glad to be here. No, this is
I know Phil's a little bit under the weather, but he graciously joined us here. So let's get back to that.
I'm good.
Let's get back to that.
Yes.
Everyone knows. I mean, or everyone. Fotis Dulos killed his wife, Jennifer. 99.9% of the people believe that. Why should we convict Michele Troconis for conspiracy to commit murder? Much more difficult to prove, Mike.
Yeah, Billy, when you look at the video of the home, and they said it was like over an hour, and it's intense because you're concentrating. But remember, this is video of the place where we think the police think that he killed Jennifer. Okay, and it has, at this point, you know, there's really no. It's padding kind of the case against her, but some of this stuff is tangentially related to her participation, but it doesn't seem that the police are even making the argument that the district attorney, that she was an active participant from the first moment that she and he both jumped her, killed her in the garage, unless you see a footprint that matches you know, Michelle's foot size and maybe a pair of shoes she was wearing. A lot of this evidence was the evidence they would use to prosecute the husband, but it seems tangential to the issue of whether Michele herself is actually guilty or not. It's a lot of, and for me, I'm sorry, I hate to say it's a lot of wasted time. If I'm a juror, I want to see what is directly connecting her. What do you have in that inventory of evidence that directly connects her? No other stuff, just directly connects her to the killing.
Right, because they have to present the case they would have presented for Fotis Dulos in order to get her.
Right.
But if I'm sitting in the jury, I'm like, wait a minute. How did she plan this? I'm
Where's
not
the beef?
getting it.
Let's see it.
Phil, what are your thoughts here?
Well, listen, this is a very complicated case, obviously, but I think that there's a lot of different things that could put her in the trick bag for the conspiracy. For instance, the alibi notes that were written, they caught her in lies on that. They caught her in several lies. I'm just shocked that her attorney allowed her to be interviewed by the police when she's the target of a possible homicide investigation, even if it was just at the time they thought she may have aided in the disposal of body parts or tampering with evidence. Very unusual for an attorney to allow such a thing. But Bill, I think you made a good point just now when you were saying that they have to lay out, prosecution has to lay out that yes, a murder took place and we believe that Fotis Dulos is responsible for it. Now, right before his bail is going to get revoked, he doesn't show up in court and he commits suicide. I know he left a note, but Mike uses the term consciousness of guilt. He knew he was going to go in, he killed himself. So I think that once they get the evidence, you know, they got to lay out an outline that he committed the murder. Now, what is her stake in this? Now, if you look at the timeline that you sent me, Bill, it talks about in a 2017 file for divorce that was done by Jennifer, she described him as dangerous, irrational, unsafe, bullying, threatening, controlling behavior, that he always had to win. Sound like a real narcissist. Now, if Michelle's involved with him at this point, I mean, I think it's almost not that hard to believe that he would have consulted with her. He wanted to move her into the home. All of these different things were going on. There was a lot of moving parts here. He was being sued by Jennifer's family for money that they loaned him for his real estate company. So I just think it's really, really, I know what you said, Billy, earlier. It's a high bar to reach, the threshold to get a conviction on conspiracy. I do agree with you, but in my mind, listening to some of the evidence, I think it's almost I don't want to call it a slam dunk, but I think it's almost an absolute that, you know, she's in the car with him. He's driving miles away from his house and putting bags of garbage in trash receptacles and in sewers. I mean, you don't think, and my question as an investigator would have been, when I had the opportunity to investigate her, what did you ask him? What was he putting in the sewer? Did you ask him? You had to ask him. You know, if you're in that vehicle, and she admits that she's in the vehicle, she also admits that she lies several times.
But Phil, she can't be asked that. Well, now she can't. But
no, now she can't. But during
the detectives could have asked her that, but she could have just feigned ignorance. You know,
yeah, a lot of the times in the interview she did say a lot of times, yeah, I took the keys, but I don't know why I took them. And talking about one of the vehicles, you know, listen, there was a definite major conspiracy here. Now, I'm of the belief in all homicide investigation. When you have a premeditated homicide, the minute you start thinking about it, you're making mistakes. Now, in a spontaneous, you know, let's say a robbery gone bad or an assault that turns into a homicide, mistakes are made there. But I think that, you know, he was trying to cover his tracks. He did a lot of different things, and I really believe she was a part of it.
Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, real crime stories. If you like real crime, true crime from a police perspective, then you're in the right place. And if you're not subscribed to us, go on our YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, ring that bell, hit the like button, share us with your friends and family. If you want to subscribe to us, we have a Patreon with 3 different levels, and we also have part of our YouTube channel memberships, 5 different memberships. Lizzie Herzberger, thank you so much for the $9.99 super sticker. Lizzie wrote the great book Behind the Blue Curtain, a story of an Amish. I'm not going to tell the whole story because I want you to buy the book Behind the Blue Curtain, Lizzie Hirschberger. And she's been sort of a spokesperson for women's rights all around the country. A great lady. I've had her on the show a couple of times. Sharon Reynolds, thank you for the £2 super sticker. Very much appreciated. All you other guys in the chat, thank you. This is Police Off the Cuff, real crime stories. We're going to get right back into this case. Kim Alliston, hope you're feeling well today. Phil, she loves when Phil says the trick bag, Detective Phil. Kim, hope you're feeling better. So, guys, very, very interesting case. And and usually I'm on the prosecution side, but I really think that this is an uphill battle for the prosecution to get a conviction in this case. Mike, it's like, the 3 charges: conspiracy to commit murder. All right. That's got to be a high bar to prove that. Tampering with evidence. I don't know. How did she tamper with the evidence? And hindering prosecution. Why? Because she didn't 100% cooperate? And what attorney that represents her would have encouraged her to cooperate, Mike?
Yeah, Billy, like we talked about this before. If she was caught on video driving her car and he was getting out of her car on the passenger side with her behind the wheel and dumping stuff, I would say, okay, she's more of an active participant in actually covering up, being an accessory after the fact. I would feel better if that was the prosecution's case, but he's driving his car. She's just passively sitting there. And so even if she knows what's going on, and I'm sure she does know what's going on, I'm having a hard time saying that she's actually physically doing some sort of action with criminal intent by sitting there that would put her, it would make her much more guilty. And the idea that maybe she is hindering prosecution, that's a very vague charge. Lawyering up and not speaking to the police and acting stupid and maybe giving stupid answers, that's not a crime. That's not a crime. It's not a crime in this country. So
Amy M., the current defense attorney out of Hartford, Connecticut, is supposed to be one of the best criminal defense attorneys in Connecticut. Very possible, but one of the arguments he made, Amy M., he argued that the blood evidence that they collected that they shouldn't have been allowed to use luminol. And luminol is a reagent that that produces. I'll have a little picture here. It'll make blood apparent where it's not apparent. If you can see this picture on the screen, till they put luminol on that, you couldn't see that blood evidence. Same thing here. You see a shoe print in blood. They had a shoe print in blood in the garage. The judge in the case was like, wait. He said he had the jury leave the courtroom and said, counsel, I'm going to research right now case law on this. And then he came back and said the blood evidence is all allowed in. Luminol is a reagent. It's absolutely accepted by the criminal justice profession, the science of forensics. It's accepted. It doesn't. It's a presumptive test for blood. So, Mike, explain the word presumptive.
Billy, it exposes the an area where blood is actually invisible. Usually, it could be invisible to the naked eye. And this is what happens when people are smart. They see these shows on TV, and they know you throw certain detergents or chemicals on top of it. Bleach is often used, things like that, in an attempt to destroy blood. And so, therefore, when those things like that happen, it's the little traces of the blood. So it's not showing you that there's actually, it's not actually lifting up blood because the blood is all pretty much gone, but it's showing you what's traces that is left over that where with the blood has reacted with whatever the surface is, concrete, like in a garage, fabric, wood, maybe on a floor and things like that. And it's presumptive test. So it would not, light up like that. We call it lighting up. I used to always say lighting up. It would not light up with luminol if it wasn't blood. If it was paint, red paint, if it was some sort of red licorice-y kind of thing, cherry juice, whatever, it would not light up like that. Only blood has the effect on luminol of lighting it up like that. I don't know of any other substance that does. And it's a reliable test. It passes the Daubert test. It's been around for many, many years. And so therefore, that argument that the defense attorney made, he's got to make that argument. He's, duty bound to zealously advocate for his attorney. He knows that that evidence is going to be admitted. He knows it, but he's got to make that argument anyway. But it is actually, it would not ever react like that if it was anything other than blood. So it presumes the presence of blood there.
Excellent. Phil, you have anything to say with that?
Well, there's a couple of things I wanted to piggyback what Mike said. One is, the defense attorney is going to, paint the picture of her as an innocent victim of Fotis Dulos' criminal activity and the murder of his wife. And he may even say something to in his opening statement like, why would a woman stay with a person who just killed their wife and dispose of their body parts? So he's going to try and paint her as very innocent in this case. It's going to be a bit of an uphill climb to get a conviction in this case, because I think on both sides, a good attorney, one of the people in the chat said that he's supposed to be the best criminal defense attorney in Connecticut. So he's going to do his due diligence. He's going to do what he has to do. I just feel like, the blood evidence, like Mike was just pointing out, you shine you sprayed a luminol. There is no blood stain that you could see with the naked eye. However, you put a black light on it, it lights right up. So that's one of the things that the crime scene unit did. And, there's one of the people in the chat here, and I think this is probably going to be one of the damning pieces of evidence. Her DNA was found in many of the trash bags. That's Brooklyn Pasola. That's Brooklyn that's in my heart. But Brooklyn Pasola says her DNA was found in many of the trash bags. So if DNA is found mixed in with trash bags that had blood evidence of Jennifer Dulos, that's definitely incriminating.
It is, but defense attorneys can explain that away usually, and we'll talk about that in a second.
Footage from officers who initially arrived at Jennifer Dulos.
I'm going to show the crime scene where the officers walk through at Jennifer Dulos' home. Again, I'm
on Prime Crime.
is a whole lot of evidence in this case, and prosecutors are getting right to it in their case against Michele Troconis, largely on that conspiracy to commit murder charge. If you're just getting caught up, want to share some of the more significant evidence that was shared with the jury over the course of the last 24 hours. What you're looking at right now is body cam footage from officers who initially arrived at Jennifer Dulos' New Canaan home as the result of a welfare check following her reports of disappearing here. As they make their way through the house, they're making note of a number of things, perhaps most significantly her purse left behind that the family babysitter told authorities she likely would not do had she left the home on her own accord. As you make your way into the family garage, authorities also pointing out a large vehicle right in that center bay there, where they were describing what appeared to be some kind of blood-like substance that had dried up on the front end of the car, also on the garage floor there. Take a listen to some of that body cam audio.
Well, it's just strange in connection with the fact that we've got a missing person.
It appears to be smeared, pinkish reddish in color, as if something was cleaned up.
Folks who remember this case will know that there was also a search for Jennifer Dulos' car. You're looking at imagery of that here, eventually found in Waveney Park. And when authorities found that kind of parked right up against the tree line there, not only was it still in reverse, but the battery there was dead. Folks know Jennifer Dulos' estranged husband, Fotis Dulos, charged with murder in this case, taking his own life before a jury reached a verdict here. And of course, Jennifer Dulos' body never found, but she was legally declared dead back in October, Tim and Erica, by a judge.
And Keith, I remember yesterday you wondered if Troconis would be let into the courtroom, maybe through a back door to avoid publicity, but it certainly looks like all the times, like all the other times she's arrived at court, it was.
So let's talk about the actual murder as if they did find Jennifer Dulos's body. The suspect, of course, was Fotis Dulos. And had he lived and was being charged, would Michele Troconis be still being charged, or would they be happy enough, Mike, to have him as the center of, or would she even, or would they try to have used her, say, as a witness against him?
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I'm with Phil on this one. Yeah, you could hold up a charge of accessory after the fact, conspiracy over her head, get her to talk about all the times that before Michelle went missing, that Jennifer went missing, all the times that he had badmouthed her to his girlfriend, Michelle, whatever he'd said, like, I wish she was dead. I wish she was out of my life. All those little things, emails, text messages, phone conversations. Maybe she could even have her wear a wire and make a phone call to him to bait him to see what he would say. They would flip her like a pancake in order to go along and jump on the case and clear her name, and then she would take a plea to something minor later or something like that. But you would definitely want to use her because she looks like she is the possibly the reason why he decided to ultimately you get rid of his wife. Absolutely. I'm with Phil on this.
Phil, you said before, a strong piece of evidence, of course, is Michele Troconis' DNA on the garbage bags. But we saw that also in the Gilgo case, the Gilgo Beach case, where Asa Ellerup, the wife of Rex Human, who's being charged in the Gilgo as the Gilgo serial killer, her DNA was on 3 out of the 4 bodies known as the Gilgo 4. Her hair. So does that mean that she was involved in these killings? No, it doesn't. But guess there's something called transfer evidence, and we speak about this all the time. She lived in the same house with Rex Human. Her hair got on things that Rex Human sat on, laid upon, walked by. In the cases of the Gilgo case, it was the burlap bags, I think, that the bodies were wrapped in. Her hair was found on 3 of the 4 bodies on the burlap bags. So that's explainable. In this case, her DNA is found on these garbage bags. That also maybe, and look, I think it's it's strong evidence, but it can be explained away to a jury willing to listen and willing to keep an open mind, and that, yeah, it could have gone on in that way and not in any nefarious way. Phil.
Well, I think the difference between the Gilgo case and this case is we have a video where they pull over, he's throwing a bag in the garbage, and then she's wiping her hand on the ground. So to me, that's a little bit more powerful. Now, you're right, Billy, transfer evidence. She could have been in the house, picked up a garbage bag, decided to not use it or something of that nature if it's a touch DNA. So, yeah, I'm sure that the prosecution is going to take that type of a stand. But earlier on, when Mike was explaining what he felt about whether or not they would have used her a witness, I think that's exactly what they had planned to do. They had arrested the both of them initially. She was charged with some tampering with evidence, I believe, something of that nature. And I think that's exactly what they're going to do. They knew they had her in a lot of lies. They had her in the trick bag for sure because she changed the story. She told lies. They had her on several different things. She's going along with dumping of what they believe to be evidence. They recovered license plates in the sewer, all these different things. So I think they had her on that. They were probably going to squeeze her a little bit and say, listen, at some point, as the trial was going to move forward on Photos Dulos, listen, we have you for these charges. You're facing 5 years in jail. Cooperate, testify against him, or whatever it is that you know, and we'll give you a, whether it be a suspended sentence or a probation type deal. That's what I think they were going for. Then he kills himself. Now they have no perpetrator in the trick bag for the homicide, so they go after her.
Alana, transfer evidence is one thing. This is quite different. You know, Alana, rarely do I play the devil's advocate here, but I am. And there are other ways that say she bought the garbage bags at the supermarket.
Or how about hand me a garbage bag? I need a garbage bag.
Right. And it got on that way. So I'm just playing defense attorney, and I have no license to practice law, but I'm just trying to think of what a defense attorney will do to create doubt. And there is a way. As far as the conspiracy, well, she was living with Photos Dulos, right? She had to know that he was a scammer. When he put up, I believe initially when he was held out on bail, they asked for $500,000. He put that up. And then I think when they were they had enough to charge him with the murder, the bail was increased, and he put up, I believe, 2 homes that were in foreclosure and one that was overvalued. So that's why they went to grab him, and that's what initiated his suicide, that he knew now he was going to jail and potentially to prison. So he had also, the way someone had mentioned in the chat, borrowed $2.5 million from his wife's family, which he was incapable of paying back. So his life was going bad. And also, Jennifer Dulos let it be known, if something happens to me,
it's going to be him.
Is the one that did it. We're having a very tough time. Their divorce was getting very contentious. And I believe the housekeeper was the one who reported her missing. Mike.
Yeah, Billy, it's I think you're right, and I have to agree with you. It could be the fact that they had no intention of really making her the centerpiece of any sort of trial for the killing of Jennifer. Michelle, and I agree with Phil, Michelle's a person who would be very valuable witness that you could flip for the prosecution. But with Dulos killing himself, now nobody's paying the price. Nobody's paying the price. Nobody's getting hung out to dry and convicted and sent to prison for a while. So it may be one of those things where the prosecution's like, somebody has to stand trial for conspiracy to commit murder. If we can't get the guy for murder, we'll get somebody for the conspiracy to commit murder. So whatever we have against her, that's where we're going to go. And she had so much evidence she could have provided, but now she's on the defensive, and she's not going to, obviously say anything. I'm even wondering if she's even going to testify at this trial, depending on how it goes. She may, if she does, she'll be like the last witness to testify. But I agree. It looks like the prosecution is saying somebody has to be put on trial for the homicide, a conspiracy to commit homicide, and she's the only one we got.
Yeah, I agree. And I like it, when we look at this right here on the screen, it's actually, I'm not playing the video. It's a still photo of Fotis Dulos in his truck pulling up, and he's about to throw out
The release of
garbage
this video
bags.
satisfies a powerful curiosity. Fotis Dulos in a black pickup, perhaps unaware he was on a Hartford street loaded with sophisticated surveillance cameras. It was the night of May 24th, 2019, just hours after Jennifer Dulos was reported missing. The video shows Fotis Dulos stopping to dump bags in the trash and also leaving what appears to be a car mat on the side of a deli. When cops traced his phone here and found this video, it was the first big break in the case, leading to charges against Dulos and his girlfriend, Michele Troconis, who claims she was just along for the ride and not a knowing participant in disposing of evidence. In a legal filing, attorney John Schoenhorn says certain allegations contained in the arrest warrants that allegedly provided the basis for probable cause are clearly false and misled the court. Schoenhorn says the only clip with Troconis visible shows her wiping her hand on the ground.
So there she is.
That's the
She's
one.
with him. She's getting out of the truck. So do I stop playing devil's advocate and say there's some real activity showing Professor Geary's favorite expression, consciousness of guilt or guilty mind? There she is.
But not helping Dulos dispose of evidence. He also says cops embellished on DNA evidence allegedly linking Troconis to the garbage bags. Troconis told cops she did help Dulos clean a vehicle days after Michele vanished, but thought any mess was spilled coffee. The defense released this clip to bolster that claim.
Did you see spilled coffee?
No, I didn't see that.
Did you see a coffee cup?
No, because I didn't look inside the car.
The videos are part of a court submission in advance of Friday, when Michele Troconis will ask a judge to remove the GPS bracelet and lift other restrictions imposed as.
So really very interesting. And I want to talk about also, in every homicide case, we come up with what's the strongest evidence? Is it the forensic evidence, in this case, the blood, the DNA, or is it the digital evidence? The cell phone, they wouldn't have found where he threw these bags
without the cell phone.
Without the cell phone.
Right.
Again, the cell phone and the digital evidence is that, pardon the expression, smoking gun evidence that leads the police. They were able to collect these items that belonged to Jennifer Dulos that he was throwing in the garbage, unaware that he's being videotaped.
Bill, I have to say that I think that the technical evidence, the technology, the cell phone evidence is going to probably be stronger, only because what you just pointed out. There's numerous locations that they were able to find videotape based on the movements of his cell phone that put him at locations dumping bags of garbage. Had they found the victim's body in a garbage dump or some location, that would have obviously made it a little bit stronger. But I think the fact that she's been ruled as deceased and they did have the technology, the cell phone evidence that led them to those locations, and you come up with video, it's already determined. She admits that that's her on the video. She said clearly indicates and identifies that it's him, that it's photos. So with those two things, I think that even though DNA is super powerful, don't get me wrong, if they found, or let's say commingled blood of either one of these two perpetrators, whether it be Fotis or Michele, mixed with Jennifer's blood, then I think that would have been a stronger DNA. But the fact that the technology provided the clues that they were able to come up with this evidence, I'm going to go with the technology on it.
Gemma McDonald, does anyone think he transported Jennifer in the red truck and later disposed her? Or did he bury her somewhere on the way back home? Mike, I'm going to let you answer that.
That's a great question. We don't know. I'd want to go back over, all the timeline and look at it in that strange truck sitting there, Michele's car. Michele, I'm not sure what kind of SUV you want to call it, sitting there.
It was a Tacoma or something.
Tacoma, okay. Sitting there, it's in reverse. It probably was sitting. It looks like I would have said she was transported in that car. He transported her in her own car. And so therefore, if there's her DNA if he's aware, her DNA would be in her car. So it wouldn't be weird. But it was sitting there in reverse, no gas, car died. I would think that would be the transport vehicle. The idea, because in the garage you see what looks like a Range Rover or something like that. I'm not
Yes,
sure.
yes.
Yeah, and so I'm not sure if that's a different car. So he probably, my theory would be he
Well,
killed her.
Mike, he probably drove her there in her
Yeah.
car and then had someone pick him up.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Michele Troconis probably picked him up
Yeah.
in his car,
But I'm
right?
thinking, where would the body be? And that's the hard part, because you got to try to, you got to take care of that fact as a prosecutor, that she's not a missing persons anymore. Because if without any sort of DNA, blood, or any evidence like that, the Troconis or Fotis, if he was alive, he could claim she just disappeared. She just disappeared, and she's alive somewhere in the United States. We have no idea.
Well,
But,
they tried that defense also.
Yeah.
Trish
yeah.
Norman, what happens when you clean up dried blood with a wet, damp cloth? Are you telling me she doesn't know the difference between a coffee spill versus blood? Trish, I'm telling you, of course she knows the difference,
Yeah.
but this is her answer.
That's she's
her
giving
defense.
a bullshit story. She's covering
Yes,
her ass
of
with a
course.
bullshit story. But Mike, you were talking about the disposal of the body. I mean, it appears that they kind of felt that they did extensive searches in the garbage dumps, that she was dumped in that nature. They didn't find it, but they did find bloody clothes and different things like
Right.
that. So, I mean, like you said, we don't know exactly what transpired, but I got to tell you, the Connecticut State Police did a tremendous job in this case. They went from a missing persons report very quickly to a suspicious missing person, and obviously a homicide investigation. I guess with all of the information that they had, that they were faced with, they found that bloody shoe print. The person that was reporting, I believe, was the maid, and she was saying that, probably telling them there was a stormy relationship between Jennifer and Photos. And, there was debt. There was a lot of components here that would have led to police to believe that this was somewhat suspicious in nature with regard to a missing person.
Absolutely. And I'm sure, look, in the beginning of this case, you got to realize this case goes back to 2019 when Jennifer Dulos went missing. I'm sure there was cadaver dogs. There were searches all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't spare any expense in this investigation, and they never found her body. So, in fact, Mike, we spoke about it before we went on the air. Also, this individual right here. And why don't you tell the audience who he is?
Oh, this is the attorney. This is Kent Mawiney. I'm not sure how I pronounce his last name.
Funny last name.
What's that?
I said funny last name.
Yeah, Mawiney or something like that. He's an attorney who's now going to stand trial for conspiracy and obstruction of justice and things like that, which is really interesting, because he apparently was helping Fotis in the very beginning, and then apparently somewhere along the line, Fotis and Michele got together with the attorney, and the attorney wanted them to write down each and everything they can think about, where they were, what they were doing on the day that the poor lady Joan disappeared. Jennifer disappeared. And so therefore, it looks like he went above and beyond his duty as an attorney representing someone to be actually a part and parcel of a cover-up, an active participant in encouraging a cover-up and aiding and abetting the prime suspect and a very strong person of interest witness in Michele to actually construct some sort of story to obstruct, justice in this case. So he may, depending on, I guess, the circumstances of the present case, if Michelle's convicted, I'm sure the district attorney is going to go after this guy and charge.
It's kind of unusual, Mike, that they charge the lawyer, because the attorney-client privilege exists, and they're taking information that was between an attorney and two clients, and I think they what I read was based on the fact that he was going to give an alibi to Fotis. That's where they put him into the trick bag for the charges. Very unusual. They're going to go after him, though. I find that it seems like there's more to it that they charged him.
Yeah, there's got to be more to it. I'm thinking that his actions have actually telling a witness and the defendant at the same time, get your story straight, write them down, like basically memorize them. So if you're asked, your stories don't conflict. Yeah, it's
I don't think you think that that's criminal, though, Mike. I mean, if a lawyer tells you, why don't you write down so your story, you get your story straight.
Right.
He's not telling them to lie, really. He's just
no, if you're telling them to, be truthful, write things down to help your memory, writing notes, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm thinking that he was Fotis's attorney. And so therefore and when they found the alibi piece of paper with Michelle's handwriting and saying, this is what I did, they realized that it kind of attorney privilege is no longer viable because you've now a third person who's involved. So I think they broke the attorney privilege that way and got to pierce that. But I don't think it's a very strong case.
I don't either.
If Michelle walks, I think they'll drop the charges against him.
I could see a possible, what they call a compromise verdict here. They don't charge her or they don't convict her with the conspiracy to commit murder, but I think they're going to convict on the obstruction and the evidence tampering charge. I mean, she's present. DNA is found on some of the evidence. So I think they won't have that hard of a time to convict on those things. Conspiracy, I guess, unless there's something that we don't know about evidentiary wise or how they present it to the jury, that's going to be like Billy said from the beginning. We're playing a little bit of devil's advocate here because we've seen these kind of cases, and it's going to be tough to get a conviction. But again, we don't know what the jury is going to be thinking. We're not part of the jury, and we're not present in the courtroom. But it's going to be interesting to see.
Alana, thank you for the 999 super sticker. The CSI text ME estimate a gallon of Jennifer's blood was spilled. Would the trash in the car carrying this trash smell like blood? Would Michelle have smelled it? Well, it depends, how long the clothing had been in the garbage bags. Yeah, potentially it could smell. Yeah, there is a very distinct smell to blood.
Decomposing blood is
it coagulates. It means it gets thicker, and I don't want to get so graphic, but but again, she's being charged. She doesn't have to admit to any of these things. She's the one that has to present a defense as to why she had absolutely nothing to do with this. Folks, if you think in the chat, if you think that this case is an easy case for the prosecution, put a 1 in the chat. If you think that this is going to be a very difficult case for the prosecution and Michele Troconis is going to beat the charges, put a 2 in the chat. I'm just interested to see, because I am of the opinion, I think that the prosecution, the state, is going to have a very difficult time getting a conviction. And I could be wrong. I'm wrong all the time. But this is my opinion in this case. The blood evidence is big, the DNA evidence, of course, and we have the digital evidence, the cell phone evidence, and the 3 or 4 hours that she was interviewed. And again, I ask, what attorney would allow his client to be interviewed for 3 or 4 hours by the popo? You got to be out of your mind.
He made a big mistake there, Billy, because he definitely put his client in jeopardy of being charged with, like I said, and maybe not so much the conspiracy to commit murder, but the other charges. I think he really put her in the trick bag for that. And I'm seeing a lot of 2s. So I think, Bill, it seems like the people in the chat are in agreement with you. This is going to be a tough case for them to get a total conviction, I think.
Yeah, and the other thing is, and not that it matters, this is a very affluent community, New Canaan, Connecticut, right? The jury of your peers, are they of her peers? I don't know. She was at one time owned, I think, a TV production company or something. She owns horses, or a business that would have people as therapy ride horses. So, this is, people don't want to see someone like that get convicted of, in other words, a sympathetic jury. And she didn't kill anybody. And I think that in that way, the jury might be sympathetic. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, Billy. Yeah, she didn't. There's no allegation that she actually, killed the victim. There's nothing like that. And if there's any sort of evidence, if there's no emails or text messages or anything like that, which shows that she may have encouraged, Fotis to kill his wife beforehand, actively really wanted this to happen and really expressed this to happen or made suggestions through text messages. If you don't have anything like that, yeah, this is a really difficult case because people want to see something, the equivalent of the smoking gun, the 21st century equivalent, the text messages, the emails, things like that. If on the day of the disappearance was her phone in that area or was her phone where she lives, Michelle lived about 50 miles away from New Canaan. So is it possible that she was nowhere physically near the home on the day of the homicide? I want to see something more than what I know about so far, and I agree with you. I would put it 2.
Yeah, I don't. And of course, this case is what all true crime people they love. Except we all would have loved to have seen Fotis Dulos in that seat, being
Absolutely.
prosecuted for the
Absolutely.
murder of his wife. Someone in the chat before said a lot of us women from Connecticut are glued to this case because many of us are in abusive domestic violence relationships, and I'm sorry to hear that.
Really.
But that's why many women from Connecticut were glued. In fact, Lizzie Hirschberger, who was here before, she has that book Behind the Blue Curtain where she talked about the abuse of Amish teenagers by the elders in the church. That and I don't want to get deeply into it, but that's what her book is about.
Billy, there's a great comment in the chat. It's by Trish Norman. She says, here's my problem. Now, she could be sitting on this jury, but just listen to this. Here's my problem. If Fotis did not want Michelle to know he killed his wife, would he want her riding around disposing of bloody evidence and asking her to help clean up? That's a great comment, I think. And it says something about the state of mind of a person that may be on this jury. It doesn't seem likely to me that he would have his girlfriend with him dumping bloody body parts or bloody evidence from a murder, and she doesn't know anything about it. That's a great comment.
Trish Norman, I agree with you. However, I'm thinking of a jury that doesn't want to put this woman in prison for 25 to life based on a crime she didn't physically kill Jennifer Dulos. So are you going to, the bar to prove that I conspired to kill her, the bar that I tampered with evidence, right? The bar that I hindered prosecution, different height to that bar than if she had killed Jennifer Dulos or took part in the murder of Jennifer Dulos, which this smart defense attorney was like, we don't even know if they never ever even recovered her body. How do we even, he could make, if he wants to make that argument. And I think this is probably the new attorney on the right. There's a picture of Michele Troconis, Jennifer Dulos, and I'm not sure of the new attorney's name, but he has a perfectly manicured beard, and he's probably very expensive since he is in New Canaan, Connecticut. But he's making some of these arguments. He argued about the luminol. Is the luminol the standard? Is it accepted? Is it case law? And the judge had to review the case law and ruled, yes, luminol is absolutely admissible. And it is presumptive test for blood.
Billy, a quick chat here, comment. Alana says, Sergeant Bill, this case brought about a change in the state law. Jennifer's law changes the definition of domestic abuse to include coercive control. I like that. We know that domestic violence is a big problem in this country. We've done a lot of cases where domestic violence led to homicide and abuse of victims. So I like the idea that they changed the law there. That coercive control sounds like describing exactly the behavior that this person had, this Fotis Dulos had. He seemed to be a narcissist in my mind. So maybe the death of Jennifer Dulos wasn't in vain. Perhaps that law could save someone else down the line.
Absolutely.
Years of searching.
Again,
In a story that went national almost instantly, prosecutors alleging the husband of Jennifer Dulos and his girlfriend worked together to plan Jennifer's killing. The girlfriend, Michele Troconis, is pleading not guilty as she now faces the charge of conspiracy to commit murder. And while people coast to coast heard about what happened, it's the local reporters on the ground who covered every in and out, every development in this case, including NBC Connecticut's Shannon Miller. She's been reporting on this story for years. She's got tonight's backstory.
A missing mother of 5.
Now to the case of missing New Canaan mother Jennifer Dulos.
The frantic search for her captivating the public. The estranged husband charged with murder, but his suicide under house arrest blowing up the entire case. And her body never found. Now, more than 4 years of investigations and legal drama, the grieving family of murdered mom Jennifer Dulos is finally getting a chance at justice. The trial of Michele Troconis kicking off in a Connecticut courthouse. She stands accused of conspiring with Dulos' husband to plan the murder, charges she has pleaded not guilty to. I've been covering every twist and turn as a reporter for NBC Connecticut along the way. Lots of photographs being taken out here tonight.
Jennifer is an incredibly gentle and wonderful person. She loves her children dearly.
It began in May of 2019. Family and friends of Dulos reported her as missing, kicking off a statewide search. Almost immediately, suspicion landed on her husband, Fotis Dulos. The two were in the middle of a messy divorce and child custody battle. His new girlfriend, Michele Troconis, also suspected.
A stunning development. Fotis Dulos, along with another woman, are under arrest in connection with a criminal investigation.
A week later, prosecutors charged a couple with evidence tampering and hindering prosecution. Surveillance video caught Fotis Dulos disposing of items that were found to contain traces of Jennifer's blood. Fotis' defense team hitting back with a shocking claim that Jennifer might have staged her own disappearance, like the plot of the book Gone Girl.
We are actively contemplating a revenge suicide hypothesis as an explanation for her disappearance.
Prosecutors not convinced by that theory, but after months of searching, they still had no idea where Jennifer Dulos was. But 8 months after Jennifer went missing, prosecutors felt they had enough physical and circumstantial evidence to bring charges. In January of 2020, they charged Fotis Dulos with murder and charged girlfriend Michele Troconis with conspiracy to commit murder.
Michele Troconis in handcuffs.
Both of them put under house arrest as they waited trial. But then, just weeks later, a disturbing twist. This is where it all began earlier this morning at Fotis Dulos' Farmington home, that suicide attempt. Fotis Dulos rushed to the hospital after attempting suicide at his home in Connecticut.
When officers responded, they could see through a window that Mr. Dulos was sitting in his vehicle, and he had obvious signs of medical distress.
The accused, father of 5, trying to die by carbon monoxide poisoning in his garage. Then, 2 days later,
Fotis Dulos was declared dead tonight at 5:32.
prosecutors' main suspect gone, leaving behind a suicide note proclaiming his innocence.
Quote, I refuse to spend even an hour more in jail for something I had nothing to do with.
The next day, I sat down with Dulos' attorneys who vowed to clear their client's name.
He was accused by the world, and there was nowhere he wouldn't go or could go without whispering and hateful comments made about him.
Leaving his girlfriend, Michele, to fend for herself in court. In May of that year, Troconis breaking her nearly year-long silence, proclaiming her innocence in a statement, saying she didn't know what Fotis was capable of, and quote, I think it was a mistake to have trusted him. NBC's Dateline features the saga that year, and I was happy to help provide context through all the twists and turns.
We were finally able to put a face with this name. That immediate day after, it was the lead story on every single newscast.
Another 3 years passed without a major break in the case. Jennifer Dulos' body is still missing. Her memory lives on in her 5 children and in a makeshift memorial. But her most enduring legacy may be Jennifer's Law, signed by Connecticut's governor on the 2-year anniversary of Dulos' disappearance, which broadens the definition of domestic violence to better protect victims.
Shannon is joining us now from NBC Connecticut's newsroom up in West Hartford. Shannon, we're so glad to have you with us. Thank you for being here.
All right. So a lot of things happened. Obviously, we have now Jennifer's Law. You know, Mike, I said earlier on in the show, the very beginning of the show, there's something called a dying declaration. And usually when someone dying says, so and so did this, and then they die, that's taken super, super seriously by law enforcement and by the criminal justice world and by the courts. But the reverse maybe isn't true. Someone that committed suicide and writes a lengthy suicide note saying, I didn't do this and I would never do this. It doesn't have the same effect, does it?
No, because it's self-serving. If you get a call of somebody shot out in the street, and you're a police officer, you're riding the ambulance with them to the hospital, and you say, "Who did this to you?" or that sort of thing, and they say, "Jim shot me." That has great weight. That has tremendous great weight when somebody writes a letter to the police saying, or someone in their family, "If I should die, I just want to let you know that my husband probably did," or something like that. That has tremendous weight, and that will always be admissible to help prove the guilt of some criminal suspect. However, a self-serving statement, that is written down prior to a suicide attempt, when the person is the one who's actually suspected of committing the crime, then it's really self-serving, and so it may not be admissible in court, especially in this sort of case. If I'm Michelle's defense attorney, I want that admitted as evidence to show that there was no murder, because we don't have a body, and the person most likely who's done it is disclaiming any sort of responsibility for anything that would happen. He would never do this because he loves his children, but it won't really help her, I don't think. What I'm thinking is as we're talking about this, is unless they've got some sort of like electronic smoking gun, I could see this case being either convicted of something very minor. I don't know, say some sort of obstructing governmental administration kind of thing. I don't see her getting convicted of the conspiracy charge.
Yeah, I think, in the chat, Chelsea B, disposing of items with your missing ex-wife's blood on them. Not everyone is just driving around doing that. So, Chelsea, you're preaching to the choir. I agree. I think that she probably is aware of this and is involved in it. I'm just questioning whether she can be convicted of this. And that's all I'm questioning. Is I think that the prosecution is going to have a really tough time getting a conviction here.
I think it's almost an absolute that she knew after, because she's with him when he's getting rid of evidence. Whether or not she knew before, I think that what Mike brought up there, perhaps there's some text messages or some type of searches on the computer that could implicate her with regard to having knowledge of it beforehand. But either way, it is a tough bar, like you said, Billy. It's a threshold that has to be met. But I think based on some of the responses we're getting in the chat, I think there was some great responses that kind of feel that she's responsible for it. And I think if those people that made those responses were sitting in that jury box, I think we'd have a conviction.
Phil, want to do this quickly?
Sure. Joe Murray, attorney at law. Now, listen, guys, if you find yourself in need of a criminal defense attorney in the New York City and surrounding area, there's none better than Joe Murray. He's your man. He's not only an experienced trial attorney, he's also a retired 15-year member of the NYPD. So he literally knows both sides of defense. And right there up on the screen, you see his website, jmurray-law.com. You can get a hold of him there, or you can call him at 646-838-1702, or you can email Joe at jmurray-law.com. Joe's a big supporter of police off the cuff real crime stories, and we think he is a terrific criminal defense attorney.
I just want to say a couple of things before we close out. What's the most important thing in this case? Is it the blood evidence? If we were trying Fotis Dulos, I would say yes. Is it the video evidence of him throwing out items in garbage cans, getting rid of that little rug in the front of that store? Yeah, if we were trying Fotis Dulos, I would say yes. What's the most important thing? The digital evidence, the cell phone evidence? Yes, if we were trying Fotis Dulos, I would say all of those things. But we're not trying Fotis Dulos. Are you getting my drift? We're trying Michele Troconis. So does this have the same power, this evidence against her, in proving conspiracy to commit murder? Very, very, very tough thing to prove.
Billy, the video of her wiping her hand on the ground. Now, if I'm in a car and I have something on my hand that I want to wipe, I look for a napkin. If I don't have a napkin, why wouldn't I just wipe it on the rug of the car? She took the state of mind to open the door and wipe it on the ground. So that's something that I think could be powerful with regard to having knowledge of the criminal activity that took place. And then there's all these other different things. And you know, you're making some good points, Billy. There's a lot of things, but is it powerful enough to reach that threshold? Guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the question of the day.
That is always the question. And I'm not usually sitting in this seat of playing the devil's advocate on the part of the defendant. I just think the state has a high mountain to climb to prove this. Mike.
Yeah, Billy, remember, this is a conspiracy charge. A conspiracy, contemplates that the person being charged is an active participant in the crime, either before, during, or after, and knew all about what was going on, was involved from the very beginning. Unless they've got some sort of evidence which shows that she encouraged, she did something beforehand, got the garbage bags, drove the getaway car. If there was her fingerprints are on the steering wheel of a car that's left on the side of the road that belonged to Jennifer, and I want to see something like that. That's what I want to see to convict her of conspiracy. Other than that, person helping out after the fact, like, I could see a conviction for that. Obstructing governmental administration. I could see that in this case, but I want to see something much more. Much bigger. I want to see a smoking gun for a conspiracy conviction.
Absolutely. Lieutenant Peter Pranzo, conspiracy, overt act. Absolutely,
Right.
Lieutenant Pete. Thank you for your
Absolutely
comments. Charisma, member for 24 months, 2 years. Great show. Charisma, thank you so much for being a 24-month, 2-year member of the Police Off the Cuff family. Guys, a very, very interesting case. And, you can break it down to the science. You can break it down to the art of investigation, and it all exists in this case. Just the fact that wouldn't it be easier for if Fotis Dulos was the one being charged here? Yeah, I think
A lot
so.
easier.
And then Michelle would be invited to be a witness, I believe. I don't
agree
think
with
they would try to prosecute her.
100%.
But that's why I also wonder, is this the state having to present something here? Because A, they never recovered Jennifer Dulos's body. B, Fotis Dulos committed suicide before he could be tried. And is this the state trying to hold someone accountable for this crime? Phil, your final thoughts.
My final thoughts are this. We've done many domestic violence cases over the last few years. And I think that the fact that they did change a law in Connecticut, coercive control, if you're involved in any type of a relationship where there's abuse or coercive control, we always say, don't walk, run out the door, get away, get as far away. There are different assistance groups within, they vary from state to state, but there's always help out there. A lot of cases that we talked about, there was police officers that were able to put a stop to some domestic violence. That's what it boils down to. This is a domestic violence case, but there are avenues that a person who is a victim can look into. Please don't walk, run away. We don't need more of these cases. And God bless the soul of Jennifer Dulos. Hopefully she's resting in peace, and God bless her family. I know they must be very, very painful for them at this point.
Gemma McDonald, I guess one of the few, but I think the evidence is sufficient to convict of cover-up conspiracy. It's not reasonable to believe she didn't help dispose of evidence. I hope you're right, but
I kind of felt that
I
way.
think it's going to be a tough case for the state to prove. Sharon Reynolds, I finally got there, but I have to admit the case I'm so interested in is the case of the 250. Oh, I can't go there right now. I thought you were going to talk about this one. The poor children, 5 children were left without parents. Mike, your final thoughts.
I just want to thank everybody for tuning in today, and for everyone listening and watching, just to say a prayer for the children.
Absolutely.
Because they're the ones who need all the prayers. They've lost their mom, they've lost their father, and now they're living with their maternal grandparents, but their lives have been flipped upside down, and they are the innocents in this case next to their mom. So say a prayer for those children.
100% well said, Mike. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in this afternoon, this early evening. Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Story. If you're not subscribed, go on our YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and ring that bell. Other than that, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time. God bless.
Stay safe, everyone.
Good night.
One episode just ain't enough.